Hey, let's take a minute and go in depth. Got this email from Pam. She wrote me about RFK and the ballots. She said he sued North Carolina to get his name on the ballot. Then he sued to have it removed. How much did those lawsuits cost the North Carolina taxpayers? So for those of you who really don't know the details here, Robert F. Kennedy was running as a third-party candidate. He leaned a bit right on some things, like calling to disband the Department of Education. He leaned left on other things, like being a huge proponent for environmental protections and acknowledging the threat of a changing climate. He had a pretty decent following for a time and fought to get on the ballot in North Carolina, even suing the state when they didn't plan to put him on the ballot, which is something that he won, so he was on. But since Harris took over for Biden and the race changed a lot, she and Trump became the clear frontrunners, and the polls gave Kennedy pretty much an impossible chance of winning. So he dropped out and he endorsed Trump. And in the 10 states that are up for grabs, like North Carolina, where he was on the ballot, he then filed to get his name removed from those ballots. So here, that meant another lawsuit in North Carolina. Earlier this week, the state Supreme Court agreed with Kennedy in his argument now in lawsuit number 2 by a 4-3 ruling and ordered that his name should now be removed, despite all the mail-in and early voting ballots already being printed and paid for. Justice Trey Allen wrote in the majority ruling, that is a price the North Carolina Constitution expects us to incur to protect voters' fundamental right to vote their conscience and have that vote counted. Basically, they were worried that voters would be confused if they saw RFK on the ballot, and since they were printed but never sent out, they looked at it as, hey, we still have time to make that change. So the court ruled, and the elections people had to get back to work, and some of them are not happy about it.
So everything was completely scrapped. White County spent $66,000 on those ballots that all have to be discarded.
That's Jerry Cohen. He's with the Wake County Board of Elections, and they just spent multiple days working double-digit hours for nothing, essentially, just to have to start over from scratch. So back to Pam's email, I'm not sure how much the lawsuits cost, but when you add up all of the work and the ballots and the reprinting and all that stuff for 100 counties in the state, it's going to cost about $1 million overall. Every county handles their own situation, and some pay a lot more than others. Some of the smaller counties, they only had to do a handful of redos. These 14 counties here have fewer than 100 requests in all for mail-in ballots. They may be able to, click print and get the whole job done in-house. But larger counties have a much larger problem. We contacted the 10 counties with the most ballots requested already. Most of them said they have to pay now a 25% increase, 25% more this go around to get more ballots printed this second time. Wake County has the most requests for mail-in ballots already at 24,000, and that extra 25% will add up pretty quickly. So why so much? Well, really, there are only about 3 vendors that do this type of work, and those vendors are now getting a lot of orders from not just North Carolina, but all the other states too. And it won't just take extra money to get the job done. It's going to take a lot of extra time, causing them to miss deadlines and windows that some voters may have been counting on.
Statewide, there's 132,000 voters who will get a ballot 2 weeks after they expected it. Some of them who are on the road might have, considering there have been publicity for 6 months that Friday was the mail-out date, might have provided an address where they will be maybe Monday or Tuesday of next week. And if they've moved on 2 weeks later, they're going to have to either request a new ballot or not vote. I don't know.
So all in all, what we do know is that the ballots will be late, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month. And those deadlines are not really recommendations, they are law. So what does that mean for the potential of more of those lawsuits that Pam was talking about? Well, we reached out to 5 different legal scholars and professors today, and frankly, none of them seem too concerned looking forward. But we're going to have to see how it plays out. So let me know what you think. This is definitely a rock and a hard place kind of issue. I mean, either confuse voters by having a ballot that lists a name of a guy who's actually not running, or confuse them by being late, possibly. Or does it even really matter? Do you think this is being kind of blown into a bigger situation than it really is? Email me. Let me know. Dan@WRAL.com. Tell me what's on your mind. And as always, we'll go in depth.